The $1 Million Theft: How Systemic Barriers Rob Black Women of Their Financial Future. Thank you all for being here today. I'm truly honored to share insights from my recent interview with Iris Wills, a revolutionary force in economic justice whose work has fundamentally transformed how we understand workplace equity. Iris isn't just a researcher or advocate. She's a warrior who has dedicated her life to exposing the hidden mechanisms that perpetuate wage disparities, particularly for Black women professionals. Her unflinching commitment to truth has created seismic shifts across industries, challenging corporations, policymakers, and all of us to move beyond performative solutions toward genuine structural reform. In a world where many choose comfort over confrontation, Iris stands as a beacon of unapologetic advocacy, refusing to let injustice hide behind corporate jargon or political expediency. We've all heard the stories we tell ourselves about how the world works. That hard work pays off, that education is the great equalizer, that if you just put in the effort, the rewards will follow. These narratives shape our understanding of fairness, of justice, of what it means to live in a meritocracy. But what if I told you that for millions of Americans, these stories are fiction? What if I told you that for Black women in particular, the equation of effort plus excellence equals reward is fundamentally broken? This isn't speculation. This is an opinion. This is mathematics. According to research from the Institute for Women's Policy Research that Iris shared with me, a typical full time working Black woman will lose over $1 million dollars over her 40-year career compared to her white male counterparts, even when controlling for the same education levels. $1 million. Dollars. Not because she worked less hard, not because she was less qualified, not because she made different choices, but because of systemic barriers that remain deeply embedded in our compensation frameworks. Let that sink in for a moment. $1 million. Dollars. That's a house in many communities. That's college education for multiple children. That's retirement security. That's generational wealth that never materializes. We often think about discrimination as something obvious: a slur, a denied promotion, an explicit bias. But this $1 Million theft happens silently, incrementally, through thousands of small decisions and policies that compound over decades. It happens through salary negotiations where Black women are penalized for being too aggressive when they ask for the same compensation as their peers. It happens through previous salary questions that perpetuate historical inequities. It happens through subjective performance evaluations that consistently undervalue the contributions of Black women. What makes this reality even more troubling is that, contrary to what many believe, education does not erase this gap. In fact, Iris pointed out that Black women with advanced professional degrees still earn less than 60% of what their white male counterparts make. The gap actually widens at higher education and professional levels. Think about that. The very tool that we've been told will level the playing field, education, doesn't solve the problem. In some ways, it magnifies it. Now, you might be thinking, surely we've made progress. Surely things are getting better. And yes, there have been important advances over decades of advocacy and policy change. But Iris's research reveals something deeply concerning. In the wake of recent rollbacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, these gaps aren't just persisting, they're becoming more entrenched. Let me share what happened in Washington, D.C. in 2025. Following federal executive orders dismantling DEI programs nationwide, Thousands of jobs held by Black women were eliminated across public sector agencies. These weren't random layoffs, they disproportionately targeted roles tied to diversity initiatives. And many affected employees faced sudden unemployment with limited recourse due to weakened legal protections. For decades, many Black women had pursued public sector careers, seeking stability unavailable elsewhere. Federal diversity mandates had supported their hiring and promotion. But when those mandates were rolled back, those pathways collapsed overnight. While some individuals found new roles through state level interventions, unemployment among Black women rose sharply from January through July 2025, with long term career setbacks predicted without policy reversal. This situation underscores how quickly hard won gains can be erased and how community resilience plays a crucial role in defending economic security when institutional support disappears. But there's another dimension to this story that's equally important. The economic impact extends far beyond individual careers. These disparities affect entire communities, entire generations. When we talk about the wage gap for Black women, we're not just talking about individual paychecks. We're talking about the ability to build wealth over time. We're talking about home ownership rates. We're talking about retirement security. We're talking about the resources available to invest in the next generation. The Institute for Women's Policy Research Analysis that Iris shared shows how persistent pay inequity erodes household wealth accumulation potential. These losses hinder homeownership rates and retirement savings within entire families, not just individuals. While advocacy has raised awareness nationally via media campaigns coinciding with Black Women's Equal Pay Day, actual wage parity remains elusive absent enforceable new laws. In fact, the report predicts it could take over 2 centuries at current rates before equal pay becomes reality without structural reform. 2 centuries. That's not progress. That's stagnation disguised as incremental change. Despite rising educational attainment among younger generations entering high skilled professions since early 2000s, reforms, including STEM fields, the wage gap stubbornly persists due largely to systemic bias embedded within compensation frameworks nationwide. This highlights why focusing solely on individual achievement cannot solve collective disparities. Structural solutions are essential if generational wealth gaps are ever going to close. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't just a women's issue or a Black issue. This is an American issue. This is an economic issue. This is a moral issue. When we systematically undervalue the contributions of entire segments of our workforce, we all lose. We lose their full potential, their innovations, their leadership. We lose the economic growth that comes from true meritocracy. We lose our claim to being a just society. But there are pathways forward. There are communities and states taking meaningful action, even in the face of federal rollbacks. Iris shared another powerful example from New York State. The New York State Senate recognized Black Women's Equal Pay Day on July 10th each year as part of statewide efforts spotlighting persistent racial and gender income disparities. A typical Black woman in New York earns only 66 cents per dollar earned by her white male counterpart locally, even after decades long campaigns promoting workplace equality. In response, New York lawmakers passed transparency requirements mandating annual employer reporting on gender and race based compensation alongside expanded anti retaliation provisions, protecting employees who discuss salaries openly. The law increased visibility around discriminatory practices, but also revealed resistance among some employers reluctant about sharing internal data publicly. Spearheaded by prominent leaders like Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, after years of hearing constituent stories about lost wages and opportunities affecting entire communities, these reforms built upon earlier civil rights victories, yet acknowledged much unfinished work remained ahead post DEI rollbacks federally. The campaign succeeded in making New York one of few states requiring intersectional pay audits statewide, setting precedent other jurisdictions now consider replicating amid national retrenchment against equity policies elsewhere. It's a model combining legislative action plus grassroots organizing, capable of driving measurable improvements even under adverse political climates. A blueprint relevant beyond New York borders, given current national trends undermining workplace justice elsewhere, too. This example demonstrates that progress is possible when we combine policy change with community organizing and corporate accountability. It shows that even in challenging political environments, there are pathways to advance equity. But, and this is crucial, these efforts require intentional, sustained action. They require more than hope or individual effort. Without ongoing investment in inclusion and accountability measures, both progress and generational wealth gains remain at risk. As Iris emphasized in our conversation, achieving true equity requires intentional, sustained action, not just hope or individual effort. Without ongoing investment in inclusion and accountability measures, both progress and generational wealth gains are at risk. This brings me to perhaps the most important insight from my conversation with Iris. The myth that merit alone guarantees equity is simply not true. Systemic barriers remain deeply rooted regardless of achievement. The data is clear on this point. Black women with professional degrees continue to face significant wage disparities compared to white men. The rollback of DEI policies has a direct and disproportionate impact on Black women's employment stability and advancement opportunities, especially in sectors where they have historically sought upward mobility. So, where do we go from here? What can we actually do about this $1 million theft happening in plain sight? I refuse to end this talk with platitudes or gentle suggestions. The time for that is long past. This is a crisis demanding immediate, bold action for every single person in this room and beyond. Today, I challenge you to become accomplices in dismantling this system of economic violence. If you're an employer, conduct a pay audit immediately, not next quarter, not when it's convenient, now. If you discover disparities, fix them, not with promises, not with timelines, with actual money. If you're in a position of power, use it. Demand transparency in your organization. Advocate for policies that protect and advance those most marginalized. Put your reputation on the line. Risk something. If you're a colleague, stop being silent. When you witness inequity, name it. When you see someone being undervalued, speak up. When you benefit from privilege, acknowledge it and leverage it for change. The $1 million theft I've described today isn't happening in some distant place to people you don't know. It's happening in your workplace. It's happening in your industry. It's happening with your tacit permission every time you choose comfort over confrontation. As Iris says with fire in her eyes, they tried to silence us, but we returned on fire. That spirit of resilience, of determination, of refusing to accept injustice as inevitable, that's what will ultimately transform our workplaces and our society. This isn't just about statistics or policies, it's about people. It's about dignity. It's about justice. It's about whether we truly believe in the promise of equal opportunity and whether we're willing to do the hard work of making that promise real. The question isn't whether you understand the problem anymore. The question is, what are you going to do about it and when? Because 2 centuries is too long to wait for justice. The time for action isn't tomorrow, it's now. Thank you.